How's it going, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome to another episode of Cosplay Con Talk, where we basically discuss everything pertaining to the cosplay community and conventions. We are doing another segment of Get to Know That Cosplayer, and today's guest cosplayer is Kat Valentine Cosplay. How are we doing, Kat?
I'm good. Hi, how are ya?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being a guest for this podcast series that I'm trying to get started.
Of course, anytime.
So, as always, the first question I always ask a cosplayer is, how long have you been cosplaying for?
So is it bad that I'm not really keeping track anymore?
That's perfectly. If you have a rough guesstimate, then that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I've been cosplaying since 2012, so it's been a minute, that's for sure.
Oh, so what got you into cosplaying?
Um, God, that is a great question. I'm trying to think of like the best way to phrase it. Um, oh, I know. So I used to be like super into doing theater and musicals and all that sort of stuff. And that just was like really my tribe for a long, long time. And I also was like super into anime and cartoons and just like all things super nerdy. Um, and those communities, not always, but often kind of intersect. And so a lot of the people that I was doing theater with at the time also were into these things. And they were like, hey, I'm going to this con. You should come with me. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And they're like, no, no, you're coming, and you're going to cosplay. And I'm like, oh, um, okay. And I remember I had heard of cosplay when I was younger because I just was like browsing DeviantArt or something, just something you do when you're a kid way back then.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was so cool. But I just didn't really have like the resources or the time. And then like it kind of just fell into my lap and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity. So I went and I threw together my cosplay and I had a great time and the rest is history.
Nice. Um, I think that's like how a lot of people at that at a young age find out about cosplaying is like the internet and everything.
Yeah, yeah, like it's funny because I feel like everyone like unintentionally cosplays at some point and then they find out, oh wait, this is a hobby? Like you can do that? That's a thing? Whoa. That's so cool.
So what was your very first cosplay?
So I technically have two. So my first one, my very technical first one, was Sui Ginto from Rosen Maiden. I had really wanted to be her for Halloween because I just thought I was so cool and liked like this super awesome anime that nobody else at my school had heard about. And I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna be cool and I'm gonna be this and I'm gonna look so bomb. And of course, like 15-year-old me thought I looked amazing. Um, and gosh, let's see. After that, my first costume that I wore to a convention was Grell Sutcliffe from Black Butler. Um, yeah, and that was super fun.
Now, did you buy Grell or did you make the Grell cosplay?
I ended up buying it at the time. Like, I could have made it because it's pretty simple. Um, but at that point in time, I was under the impression that everyone just bought their costumes. I didn't know making them was really a thing until I really kind of got into the community. And I'm like, oh, well, that looks way more fun than buying. So it was bought. I think the only thing I technically made um, was I made the glasses chain from like just some cheap stuff around the house.
Very
And I
nice.
think I switched out the gloves for like some old riding gloves I had from when I did horse shows. And yeah.
That's always. I think if you can always somehow add your own stuff to the cosplay, that's technically, I guess, would be making it
Oh yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's part of the fun.
nice. And what was your very first convention that you went to?
Let's see. The first convention I went to was SakuraCon in 2012. Yeah, that sounds about right. And that was super fun. I remember just being so overwhelmed, but just so excited to be around other people who had mutual interest and liked the same things as me and were like generally, just really cool, chill, accepting people. And I really felt like, yes, these are my people. I found my clan. And that was just like such an amazing feeling. And I felt so welcomed and accepted, even though like nobody knew who I was. So that just felt so good. And when you're like 15, 16, that's all you really want is to be loved and accepted.
I think that's what anyone usually wants. What was
Oh,
it
yeah.
like going to that con for your first time back in 2012?
Oh, man. It's definitely a lot different than things are now, but back then I remember walking in with one of my friends from high school, and we just got like bombarded by photographers, and I was so confused. I guess I just didn't understand. And my friend was like, "Oh, it's okay, just pose, just pose." And I'm like, "Okay." Um and then we like awkwardly made our way to like opening ceremonies, and I hadn't really experienced anything like it. It was incredible. Like here were all these people walking around in these beautiful detailed costumes. There was all these fun events. Everyone was so kind and friendly. Like you could walk up to anybody and start a conversation. And just like visually, it was so incredible. Like it was overwhelming, but in like a wonderful way, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. So it was a very nice first experience for you, being able to
Oh yeah.
witness such a great
Yeah.
event such as SakuraCon.
Oh yeah. It was very much just like Weeb Disneyland, essentially.
So, for those who are thinking about going to their first convention in that area, would you recommend SakuraCon for their first con?
Um, yes and no. I think it really depends on what you're going to a con for and what sort of things you're interested in. So SoccerCon is like very different nowadays. Um, the programming can be kind of so I think it really depends on what your interests are. Like if you're very into like the industry side of anime and Japanese culture, then yeah, I think you'll probably have a good time. But if you are wanting something a little bit more community based and a little more open to other things, I personally really love KomoriCon. Emerald City is super fun too. If you don't like big crowds, I can't say I'd recommend Emerald City or SakuraCon, but if you want something a little smaller, but still has like a great community feel, Chibi Chibi Con is really, really fun. It's a bit of a drive, but I think it's worth it.
Now, what is Chibi Chibi Con? I've never heard of that con before.
Oh my gosh, it's this super cute little community college run con out in Olympia, I think. And they have been doing really good. They've been going pretty strong for quite a few years now. And they have grown so much. Oh my gosh. It's a really fun little con. It is free as far as I'm aware. Um, there's all sorts of great events. Everyone who I have met there is super friendly, and there's so many fun things to do. So if you want like a taste of a con, but you don't want to be thrown into the deep end, I feel like that's a really great starting point. But if you are okay with big crowds and all sorts of crazy things going on, then yeah, you could totally go to a bigger con. It's just down to your personal preference and what sort of things you're looking to get out of it.
From a personal experience, I would also recommend going to a small con too. That was actually we have a free one here in Medford, which is held at a giant library and part of one of the buildings from the college called Medford Comic Con. It is a 2-day con that is free.
Oh, that. Oh, yeah, yeah. I've heard that one's really fun.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. No. It's a really nice con, and I'll definitely have to take a. If I'm ever up in the Washington area, I'll definitely have to take a look at Chibi Chibi Con.
Yes, it's super fun. I think at the moment it still is a 1 day con. They might expand it though. I know there's been like talks back and forth, but I don't know. I'm not on their staff. I just enjoy going.
And speaking while we're on that topic, have you ever helped volunteered for a con before?
I have volunteered for like small events, but I've never actually volunteered for a con. I've thought about it, but I don't know. I've heard both amazing things about it, and I've also heard a lot of horror stories. So, I think if it was like under the right circumstances, I'd totally be down for something like that. But I just really enjoy being an attendee and having my freedom. So I don't mind paying money for a pass if it means I can do whatever I want.
There is nothing wrong with that. And I think you told me you've made your own cosplays before.
I do. That's primarily what I do now. I make not all of them, but the vast majority of them, and I really enjoy doing that.
Nice. Oh, what would you say was your longest and hardest cosplay to make by yourself?
Ooh, God, that is such a good question. I think the one that took me the longest was probably when I did Nashatanya from Roku no Yusha, just because there was so many different elements to that. There was armor, there was sewing, there was just so much going on all at once. And it took me a couple months to make it, but it took me, God, I think about a year to learn how to use all the supplies and get everything I needed for it. So that definitely took quite a while. Um, as far as like the hardest that I've made, that would probably be um my Kira Kira sensation costume from Love Live of Ellie. It's one of those things where it looks relatively simple. It looks just kind of like a fitted bodice with a little bit of flair, but no, this thing is very hard. And there was a lot of work I had to do in order to make it, be a garment that can actually function in the real world.
And what was the name of the character?
Oh, Ellie from Love Live?
I've never heard of that before.
Oh, yeah. It was super popular a couple years ago. I mean, like, it still kind of is, but a while back, it's this idol anime series and phone game series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just looked it up right now. Okay, now I know who you're. She's the one wearing the blue dress with blonde hair, right?
Yeah, that's her.
Okay, yeah. No, I've heard of that before now. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I was so into that a couple of years ago.
And what was that? What was that like? Like, what's it like? Making your own cosplays.
For me, it's just a fantastic creative outlet. I love really being able to work with my hands and sit down and kind of problem solve and kind of, I guess, take things that are on a screen and it's like, okay, how do I translate this to the real world? And I really love adding my own touches and using, unique fabrics to get interesting draping and different movement. Um, yeah, for me, it's just like very deeply satisfying creatively. Because, ooh, excuse me. I used to be super into like drawing and things like that, and I loved doing that. But I just have found like crafting and cosplaying slightly more satisfying because, you have like a physical end product and you can be like, hey, look, I made this. So there's like a sense of pride with that as well.
Very nice. That's really good. Now, for those who are wanting to get into making their own cosplays, especially for beginners and those who are on a budget, would you happen to have any tips and recommendations?
oh man, where do I begin? I have multiple. I'd say if you're on a budget, I think it's important to be realistic because you absolutely can cosplay on a budget. But, there are limitations like, as much as some people aren't going to want to hear this, you can't make full screen accurate stormtrooper armor for less than $50. Like, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. um, but I think, honestly, it's best to start off relatively simple, just so that you're not getting in over your head, and picking things that, have very simple forms. Another great thing, if you just are really, really unsure about starting sewing or armor making, is thrifting and altering, those sorts of things. Like, it's super easy to grab something. So if you need like a jacket, you can easily go to like Goodwill or something and you can just adjust that or add some patches or do whatever you need to. And I think that's a really great way to get started. Plus, it gives you a great idea of how, costuming works and how different pieces of fabric fit together in order to make a shirt or pants or a skirt or whatever you're wanting to make.
And that was actually going to be my next question was about, would you recommend thrift stores to those who are just starting out?
Yes, I cannot recommend them enough, honestly, especially like if you are on a budget or if you just are like really nervous about sewing or starting things like that. Like, I still go to thrift stores and I still get stuff there all the time. Like, you can even get full things of fabric there. I know everybody pushes to go to Joann's and go to all these fancy fabric stores, and you absolutely can. Like, I shop there a lot. They know me by name. But, if you do some deep digging, you can use bed sheets, you can use curtains. Like, there are some sections in secondhand stores where they have like straight up fabric and stuff. So just go and look for curtains and bed sheets and things like that. I do have to say, if you are like brand new to sewing though, I cannot stress enough that I would go and I'd grab some cheap bed sheets or some fabric that you don't care about. And I would do a mock-up. And a mock-up is essentially kind of like a practice run, if you will, before you make your actual garment. So let's say you want to make a vest. Well, you don't want to accidentally cut, your nice fabric. And, that's all messed up. And then you have to go and rebuy it. Not speaking from experience or anything. So I definitely can't stress enough to like just go get some cheap fabric, take that, practice with that. And then once you're satisfied, you can actually use those pieces to use as a pattern if you want. And it'll make sewing with your actual fabric so much easier.
That's some really good advice, especially for those who are beginning.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
My cat is like screaming out the door. One second.
It's okay. So, speaking of when it comes to making your own cosplays, have you ever had like any cosplay mishaps when at a convention, like something ripped, torn, or such something just didn't go the way you had planned it to go?
One too many times. I feel like when I first started out, that was kind of the norm for me. And I definitely still have like plenty of misfunctions now. I think one of the worst I've ever had. It's funny looking back on it. I was with some friends and we were doing a Roko no Yusha group, and we were all super excited and we're like, oh man, our costumes look so great. Let's go out on the con floor. And I was in like a lot of armor, so I kept having pieces fall off. I could not walk very fast. I ended up slowing down the group unintentionally. I felt so bad. And I mean, like, yeah, that's partially my fault because like I probably should have done a couple more fit tests, but here we are. And so we ended up, I think, splitting off at some point. during the day, and I just was like trying real hard to keep everything together. Um, and I made my breastplate slightly too small.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, like, my friend who was with me, like, kept, like, having to watch to make sure, nothing was gonna slip out. And so at one point, she leans over and she's like, "Psst, Kat, you're kind of showing." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Let's go somewhere and, like, take care of this." So we go upstairs to where we think no people are, but there's, like, a small group sitting in, like, these chairs. And she's, like, trying to stuff, my boob back in there. And people are looking at us like we're crazy, and they're like whispering, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, is she touching her inappropriately?" And I'm like, she's helping me, I swear. This isn't harassment. She's helping me. Oh my gosh, it was a time. And, I kind of like shook it off, and I was like, okay, everything's back where it needs to be now. We're fine. And so at the end of the day, we all go to get some Starbucks, because that's kind of like our little like friend group tradition. And while waiting in line for Starbucks, I had this little capelet that hung off the back of my costume. And I swear to God, I had done so many fit tests with this to make sure it would stay in place. And of course, while I'm waiting in line for Starbucks, this thing falls off.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh no. And like the shorts I had underneath were like kind of showy. So, like I'm showing like half my ass cheeks to the Starbucks. And so one of my friends runs over with his cape and covers me, and we're like awkwardly trying to put things back on.
Oh
So
no. I feel bad for cosplayers when they're at a con, like during a competition I seen a few years back. This gal was cosplaying as Kyrie from Kingdom Hearts, and during the competition, her wig just fell clean off her head.
Oh no! Oh my God!
It's
Been there, done that.
it's, and I don't think people realize that it happens.
Oh yeah,
Like cosplay mishaps will happen, whether it's just a slight
absolutely.
little tear on your costume, because I've had that happen to me before as well with my Reaper
Oh yeah.
gloves from Overwatch.
Mm.
And it's like I get people are embarrassed about it, but if they like, I think that's like a learning curve for them. Like they know later on, like, okay,
Oh yeah.
hey, if I do this character again, I know what needs to be done. And I imagine that's what you realized with that cosplay is like, if you did them again, you're like, okay, this is what I need to do so it doesn't happen again.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's absolutely a learning experience. And of course when it happens, it's embarrassing, but I think the easiest way, in my opinion, to get over that is just to realize these things happen and to laugh about it, cuz it might be really embarrassing in that moment, but maybe when you're talking about it with your friends later, it's going to be hilarious. Like several friends and I have so many stories of like costume mishaps or like photos where our wigs are sliding off our heads, and we just think they're the funniest thing.
Um, yeah, no, it's like even professional cosplayers, I imagine that even happens to them too, and then
Hmm.
it happens.
Oh yeah,
Now,
just funny
so,
things.
yeah. Now I know with COVID and everything that it canceled a lot of
Mhm.
cons. Were you able to go to any conventions before COVID hit last year?
I was not. There were a couple cons I had planned on going to, but they were supposed to kind of take place, after COVID had hit, and I was like, okay, no cons for me.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I was sad, but I was like, I COVID and cons really, really don't mix, because pathogens already spread so easily at cons. Like, the meme about con cred, that's there for a reason. A lot of people
Oh yeah, no,
are just
it's
sick. And so I don't really think, unfortunately, that we can trust con goers to not spread COVID right now.
no.
Um,
I cannot argue
so
with you on that. Like I 100% believe that I've seen. It was a video on TikTok I seen of a convention going on in Florida around during
I saw
COVID.
that same one. Oh my god, I was so mad.
And like I know they were wearing masks and all, but it's like that's not fair to those who can't afford to go to a convention. And I get,
Exactly.
even if you're 100%, you're not going to get COVID, and the con
Yeah.
like cons need to realize, like, hey, maybe we should just wait instead of like,
Mhm.
having a major event like a con during a pandemic. It's not good, and
Exactly.
there's that chance that people will get sick.
Yeah, and like I'm not going to sit here and say that like I haven't screwed up at times or I haven't done things that are like 100% like COVID safe like but still conventions that is such a risky thing to do. And I think it's really easy to go, "Oh, I don't care if I get COVID." But that's the thing. You could potentially get somebody else sick, or if you don't get them sick, they could end up spreading that to somebody in their family or their friends group who's immune. And so many people have lost so many loved ones. And like, I don't know. I couldn't deal with that kind of weight on my shoulders, knowing that
Mm,
I spread something that could have hurt somebody
exactly.
at a con. So I'm like, no, no, thank you.
Ex-
I definitely want to wait till I get the vaccine, at least. But
Um,
that's just me.
Most definitely. Now when COVID is officially over and people can go back to cons, do you have any future cosplays that you would want to bring to a con once COVID is over and officially done with?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have so many. When this whole thing started, kind of like my motivator to like, keep me from being a complete mess was like, oh, it's okay. Well, I'll just work on all these different cosplays so that when COVID is over, I'll have all these fun costumes to take to con. Um, and that's kind of what I've been doing. The ones I have like started and I'm working on right now uh, are Catherine Howard from Six the Musical, and I have three different versions of Persephone from Lore Olympus in the works.
Nice.
Yes, I have let's see, her Dread Queen, which I'm super excited about. I've got that cute little office dress with the cape, and I'm doing her Fury outfit too. I'm so
Uh,
excited.
Now her Dread Queen, is that where her like eyes are just like straight blood red?
Yes, yes, and she's got the crown, and oh, I love
Oh,
it so much.
that'll be cool. I have yet to see. I've always seen them on Instagram. I've yet to see a Persephone cosplay in person, and I think that'd be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I just really love Lore Olympus and Lore Olympus cosplays. Like people get so creative. It makes me so happy.
Nice. We got probably about like 2 minutes, probably 2 or 3 minutes. Here to go. Do you have any other experiences you'd like to share when going to conventions or cosplaying?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think, your safety should always be paramount. Always be careful. Like, even though you are in a community, where you might feel very comfortable, not everybody has your best interest in mind. So just always keep your wits about you. Um, have fun. Be nice to others. Drink some water. Eat some food. Take your meds. I know it's super easy to forget, but like, you're going to have a bad time if you're having, withdrawals from your meds and you're dehydrated and all this other stuff. So at least make the effort to try to do that.
That's some really good advice right there. I guess since you brought some of that more up, any more advice you would like to give, especially for first-time cosplayers or people who are considering cosplaying and wanting to go
Mhm.
to a convention?
Yeah, definitely. I would say don't be afraid to be a beginner because everybody has to start somewhere. Like, your first costume might not be amazing, but like I think you should take pride because it takes a lot of guts just to be able to put all that on and to go out and to do that in the first place. And so I'd go and I'd be proud of yourself. And have fun. Try to make some friends. Like, well, I can almost guarantee you'll probably make a couple friends. Um, yeah, be smart Be safe. Listen to your con elders. Follow the rules. If you're underage, don't try to sneak into 18 plus panels. I cannot tell you how many minors I've been like, can you please let me into this panel? And I'm like, no, you are a baby. Go do your homework.
That's definitely. Again, Kat Valentine, thank you for being another guest on Cosplay Con Talks. Get to know that cosplayer.
Of course, I had such a good time. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome. Again, I am Wayne the Unknown. Thank you for listening to this, and until next time, thank you for watching.